I think that people are overreacting a bit. So let me just start off with, this discussion around a recession. I don't think we're going to have a recession. I don't think the outlook looks like we're going to have a recession. And Larry Summers saying there's a 50% probability, I just don't agree with that. We've had a 5% correction in the S&P. We've had close to a 10% correction in the NASDAQ. Both of these indexes were at very high levels and had huge tech spending built into these. So I don't think anybody should look at what's a natural, healthy correction of these indexes as indicating that the economy's in trouble.
Former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin saying everyone's kind of freaking out about nothing. Look, markets hit an all-time high, and we had a healthy pullback. Nothing more than that. If he's right or not, we will see. But if he is right, we could be ready for some explosive moves in the crypto market. Can we land some updated trade deals? Mexico, Canada. Can we get a ceasefire? Can we get the Fed to start bringing down those rates? If any of those things, all of those things happen, it could be really explosive for crypto. Now, for XRP specifically, what a difference this bull run has been. We don't have to sit around and hope maybe something will happen. And we're hearing reports that something really big is happening imminently. Let's take a look at it here. Eleanor Terrett saying, two well-placed sources tell me that the SEC versus Ripple case is in the process of wrapping up and could be over soon. I put a lot more weight to this than if it was just someone like me or some blogger, someone just making something up. Like Eleanor has sources, she does good reporting, and she just may be right here. And it makes sense with everything else we see. Every crypto court case there is out there being settled out. It's time. It's time they figure this out and put it behind us. She's saying right now the delay is, though, Ripple's legal team negotiating more favorable terms regarding the August District Court ruling, which imposed a $125 million fine on the company and included a permanent injunction preventing the company from selling XRP to institutional investors. Now, they can sell XRP to institutional investors, just not direct, right? Wrapped in contracts. They'd have to sell on the open market. So institutional investors can still source liquidity, but you don't want these injunctions laying around out there. You never know what reptilian will be in the SEC in 4 years from now and can circle back around and go after you. You want to try to wrap this up in some sort of reasonable, logical, and stated manner on the page. She's saying the argument I'm told is that the new SEC leadership is wiping the enforcement slate clean for all previously targeted crypto firms because it believes, well, regulatory clarity will resolve the underlying issues. Why should Ripple be penalized? No one else is. Kraken, Coinbase, you name it. This all goes away. Uniswap, just dropping all these court cases. And here Ripple's stuck paying this fine. And worse yet, the bigger deal, you have that injunction. Accepting the Torres rule as it stands would mean that Ripple's essentially agreeing to wrongdoing. But now the SEC itself seems unsure whether any wrongdoing occurred. This is a problem, though, again. Both sides, if they want to get rid of that penalty, they can't just go, well, we agree. No, you'd have to go back to Judge Torres, and probably we changed our minds from the SEC isn't enough. So maybe if we get some safe harbor, some rule changes, at some point in time, we may be able to get rid of that $125 million fine. Just how quickly? That's the issue here. And what can they do with that injunction? Because you just don't want that looming over your head. You just don't know what transpires down the road. Now, Jeremy Hogan says, well, the case is in the process of wrapping up. It could be over soon. This is what his thinking is about this. The only way it could be over soon is if Ripple and the SEC reach a private settlement agreement, which would vary from the judgment, dismiss the appeal, and then simply never take the terms back to the trial court to be ratified. So, if we're going to do this properly, if we're going to do this by the books, we're going to have to go back to Judge Torres. And we're going to have her examine this and rule on it. And that's going to take time. That won't be over quickly. This is possible, but assuming the injunction is the sticking point, and I think that $125 million is a bigger deal than people think. I mean, we're not talking about pocket change. Ripple will eventually pay it, but if they can get out of doing so, they're going to want to. This is $125 million they could use to acquire a business or invest in, one of their current businesses. Like, that's significant money. I don't think ultimately it'll get in their way in a big time. They're well funded, but if you can get out of that and get that money back, you're going to do it for sure. The SEC would have to agree to not enforce the court's injunction, but the problem is the current SEC could agree to that, but if you don't take it back to the judge, who's to say who's in charge 4 years from now? They might circle back and come for revenge. He goes on to say, I have a hard time believing the SEC would just agree not to enforce the injunction, because what if Ripple did go down the road and start breaking rules? Well, they're going to want to go after him, right? Like, they need to have this on the books. I don't know if they could do this makeshift kind of stuff. And so maybe it is they're getting ready to release a safe harbor or something like that. I think it would take something to that degree to really get Judge Torres to look at this and modify stuff. Other than that, she's going to say, you shouldn't have sued us, or you shouldn't have sued Ripple. Too bad. You're kind of stuck with the results unless you go to appeal. We'll see. But it seems like from Eleanor's sources, they're going to come up with some sort of solution here. Maybe they could just drop the appeal, wait for that safe harbor, and then go back to Judge Torres. Maybe something like that would be in the works. Only time would tell. But I think, if they don't get that modified, Ripple probably is not going to want to drop their appeal on their side, because we're going to get regulations in this country, and we're going to get probably a safe harbor. And either of those two things, a change in law or a change in guidance like that, where the whole industry has a sweeping safe harbor and would be, safe from any sort of fines and injunctions like this, well, that would be something Judge Torres would have to look at. We see this update here. Franklin Templeton, we talked about this yesterday, brings the total of 9 firms filing an ETF, and major players like BlackRock are still on the sidelines. It's interesting. I think we're going to see BlackRock make an appearance here sooner than later, because look, we got Grayscale, heavy hitter here, Franklin Templeton, CoinShares, ProShares, Wisdom Tree, all of these very advanced and sophisticated market participants have looked at this area of the market, and they believe there's demand there. And so I just don't think that BlackRock's going to concede, the broader crypto market. So we'll see. Maybe Fidelity as well. I would think they would want to jump in here. Remember, the SEC delayed making a decision here. It gives BlackRock, Fidelity more time if they want to try to be with these first issuers. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to stick with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Only time will tell, but I would not be surprised to wake up and we see that BlackRock is making a run here. We see Rumble. They decided to add $17 million in Bitcoin as a new treasury strategy. And this is the kind of thing I like. Hold some cryptocurrency on your books, an amount that you can deal with the volatility. It's a very volatile asset. I think it makes sense long term. The only thing I don't like about Michael Saylor is this is not what he's doing. He's not taking his earned income and holding a portion of it in Bitcoin. He's using a lot of leverage to lever up and acquire Bitcoin in what I think is a irresponsible manner. We see Wolf of Wall Street retweeting my buddy here, Zach Rector, who says, BlackRock won't be missing this party, saying, well, there's some clickbait and just flat out lying. Lying about BlackRock's ambition for digital assets does not help your cause. What I would say is I don't think that Zach is lying here. I don't think it's necessarily clickbait. We don't know. We don't know what BlackRock's going to do. Again, they may just decide to have those two for now. But I think it's reasonable to assume we're seeing all the other people descending on both Solana, XRP, and there's going to be more. I'd be very surprised if we don't see BlackRock jump in here. They might be waiting for what Eleanor is saying, that there's going to be an end to that court case. Maybe we'll see them file then. They have a little bit of time here to decide. And, they don't have to be there day one. You probably would want to be, so you can jump out to a big lead, but maybe they enter the altcoin space more aggressively a little bit down the road and let those Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs mature a little bit. I'm not sure, but again, I don't think Zach Rector is lying. It's perfectly reasonable to assume that BlackRock will be entering this space sooner than later. This was interesting. Latinx's Donald Trump's goal is to have zero taxes for anyone making less than $150,000 per year. If this was 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years, I would tell you this is nonsense. It ain't going to happen, but I don't know. We're going to go through some really strange times where much of society is redesigned. Could this happen? Well, people making under $150,000, they don't amount for a huge amount of the tax roll. I don't know the exact stats, but I would say it's less than 5%. maybe 2 or 3% of the total taxes paid come from this group. Could they do it? Sure. But our problem is, we need probably more tax revenue coming in, and we need to cut expenses, and we have a huge deficit. So would it matter? Would it be harmful to get 3% less tax revenue per year? Yeah, it's not great. So we'll see what happens with this, but we could see some weird stuff like this happen. If it doesn't happen now, you notice more talk about this stuff. We know in the future it's going to be happening because AI is going to start taking over a lot of the jobs and just technology and automation in general and robotics. So a lot of people are probably going to be out of work, and we're going to have to redesign all of this. I think this is just kind of like the government dipping their toes in those waters, at least having those discussions, because we're going to have to redesign society from the top down. That is going to happen for sure. This is kind of spooky. We see Ethereum drops out of the top 20 protocols by 24-hour revenue. And one of the things we've always used to value Ethereum is the revenue. We look at it kind of like almost like a business. Like, it drives all this revenue on a regular basis, and therefore it should have high value, and it's just not doing that. We see this report here by Van Eck. Ethereum's decline accelerates. Can it be saved? Ethereum's losing big ground. While Solana and Bitcoin surge ahead, Ethereum is struggling to maintain dominance. Van Eck reports a 93% drop in revenue over the past year. What's causing this? Fragmentation. Ethereum pushes a lot of its users to layer 2s, scattering liquidity. That's the great thing about Ethereum typically, right? It has all the liquidity. If you want to do a transaction, you might have to pay fees. You might have to wait a bit if things are congested. But, when you have liquidity spread across all these layer 2s, ain't so good, is it? Solana's rise, of course, fast, cheap transactions attract traders, especially for meme coins. So that's kind of the deal. A lot of Solana stuff is still these low-value transactions. If you're an institution and you want to take, $50 million worth of wrapped Bitcoin and do some DeFi, you're probably still going to go to Ethereum. But Solana's taking some market share, as are other chains as well. Lost deflationary edge. So when there's a lot of activity going on the Ethereum network, we're burning more Ethereum than we are, pushing onto the market. And so this messes up the tokenomics. So we're kind of in a bad spot. What does Van Eck think Ethereum needs to do? Well, they need to lower gas fees so people are more incentivized to use the main chain. We need to have account abstraction, which is interesting. That's an area that really, I know, piques the interest of David Schwartz. This idea that, if we build systems correctly, we don't have to worry about, is it happening on the XRP ledger? Is it happening on Ethereum or Bitcoin? Like, we just do the transaction we want, and it just happens in the background. So we don't have to really be in here in the nitty gritty. Near's working on some really, really cutting edge chain abstraction here, account abstraction techniques. Someone's going to get that right someday, but that someday ain't today. So maybe at that point in time, doesn't matter if you're using layer 2s. It's all going to kind of be going on that ecosystem. It makes it easy for users. They don't have to worry about, what's going on in the background, but we're just not there yet. So that's one thing. And then risky bridges. So again, this game is bridging all these different side chains and layer 2s. And with that comes risk. So that kind of devalues what's going on here a bit. If I had to guess, this isn't the first time Ethereum's been in trouble. We've seen it before. I remember Ethereum falling to $85, $87, something like that. And you saw it rebound. We've seen XRP down in the dumps. It rebounds. I think Ethereum will just be just fine. I think it'll have a strong bull run, but make no mistake, this ain't great right now. It is melting. We are below $2,000 a coin. It'll be interesting how they find their way out of this. People are looking for the next upgrade. Is that going to help things? We'll see. Time will tell. Let me know what you think down below. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Inc.